Welcome to another episode of the Fanzone Podcast, your home for all things Bolton Wanderers, up the Trotters, the Northwest's #1 podcast.
Good evening, and welcome to another episode of the Fanzone Podcast. Tonight, of course, is a preview show ahead of tomorrow evening's game at home, of course, against Charlton Athletic. Tonight, of course, you're joined by myself and Ange. Ange, how are you?
Do you know what? Considering it's Blue Monday, or whatever they call it, not too bad. Thanks.
And for the eagle-eyed amongst you, you'll notice that we're also joined by Louis from Charlton Live. Louis, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure. We understand that you're not making the journey tomorrow night up to the Tough Sheet.
Yeah, a bit of a rare one, a rare miss for me, unfortunately. I've been there enough times to know what it's all about. I'll watch it on the telly tomorrow.
Probably, I'm guessing not too many nice memories, which I'm sure we'll touch upon.
We won there once with 10 men, which I remember, but that was that's probably the only time I think I've seen us win there.
No, well, I'm sure we'll get into historical games. But in the meantime, of course, I'd like to wish good evening to all of you who've joined us so far in the chat. Of course, that includes channel members Pete. Good evening, Pete. Brandon, of course, good evening to you. Ian, good evening to you as well. Thank you very much to everybody who's joined us so far tonight in the chat. We are, of course, hoping for 3 points tomorrow evening. We say that with somewhat of a deep breath because I can't anticipate that to be likely, but we'll have to wait and see. If you'd like to get your comments in the chat, then of course I shall do my best to bring them to view. It is only myself tonight who's going to be controlling the chat because Ange doesn't have that power, unfortunately. She just sits there looking pretty with her feet up. And I'll obviously make sure that I can do my very best to bring all your opinions and thoughts to comment. But in the meantime, I reckon we do the old season so far. What do you reckon, guys?
Crack on.
So such fun already. We play 12th place Charlton Athletic tomorrow at the Tough Sheet Community Stadium. The battle of the mid-table obscurity.
You're selling it.
Can
You're
you
really
maybe
selling it there, Colin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, give us a bit of an insight into your season so far, if you don't mind, Lou. I know that you guys currently sit, you like I said, 12th in Sky Bet League One. Recently losing away at Rotherham, but prior to that, can you give us a bit of an idea of how you guys have been getting on, please?
Yeah, well, to put it this way, I mean, it sounds like there's an absolute crisis going on at your place at the moment, and everyone wants a manager out and all this and that. Well, we're 4 points behind you, so that's how it's gone this season for us. It's turned a little bit recently, but we started really well as well. I think people forget that when we beat you guys at home, that was our third win out of 3. We still hadn't conceded a goal at that point. We were thinking, right, 148 points this season. Go the whole campaign without conceding. We'll be sitting pretty. But then, at the start of the season, there were slight concerns, I guess, about the sort of narrow nature of most of victories. Like our win against you was probably our most complete performance in the early stage of the season, but most of them were quite tight games that we just nicked. And then I wouldn't say the wheels came off a little bit, but certainly things started to falter and things started to catch up a little bit with maybe the playing style that people have been concerned about, how we were quite tight in games. And then all of a sudden we went 3 or 4 games on a losing streak. Fans started to get a bit nervous about the way we were playing. Then all of a sudden it turned and we beat Birmingham, became the first team to beat Birmingham this season at home. And, Nathan Jones got very excited and offered to leave the club if the fans thought they could pick the team better than he could over the last few weeks and that sort of thing. So finally we've arrived and then went on to win like 1 in 9. It was going a bit badly. Then just before Christmas, we got the gift of a game away at Northampton, who were absolutely dreadful and beaten 5-0. That kicks off a little bit of momentum. We went on to win our next 3. And then, I mean, up until Rotherham, on Saturday, we were 6 without defeat, looking a bit better, looking like we finally found a playing style. We were very long ball at stages this season, but we'd finally started to play it through the middle. And then Saturday happened, so I don't really know where we stand right now, because that was probably the worst performance of the season, particularly defensively, because we've been quite good defensively over the course of the season. But I mean, we gifted the sort of goals that we were giving away the last 2 years when we had Terrell Thomas at centre half and Michael Hector. All of a sudden, like we looked awful on Saturday. So I'm hoping that's a blip rather than us reverting to type that we'd seen at the start of the season.
Well, people are really loving scoring against us at the minute, Lewis. So welcome to Charity Wanderers.
Yeah, that's what I said on our show yesterday. Obviously, with your problems as well. Like, is it going to be a chance for us to really get this crowd to turn on you, or is it Dr. Charlton turning up like we have done a few times over the years for different clubs?
Yeah, and I think we're both probably stuck between somewhat of a rock and a hard place for that, because whenever Mr. Everett needs a result, he gets a result. And I think we are, especially given the reaction to Saturday's draw. He's teetering on the edge of needing something big to happen. And historically speaking, he has managed to achieve that. Casting the memory back to last season, it was a 3-3 draw, if you can remember, Louis, back then. And if I recall, am I right in saying that was Nathan Jones kind of quite early on in his tenure?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, he.
What's the feeling been with him since then?
It's been a bit of a roller coaster, to be fair. So when he came in last season, I mean, as you can tell by the fact we conceded 3 goals in that game, we were defensively really, really poor. I think when we drew 3-3 with you guys, we were on about a 15-game winless run at that point as well. We went to beat Derby a few days later. But yeah, so he sort of came in and engineered a little bit of structure into the side, and it's one of those things that is a bit easier to have picked up now with hindsight, because we were still conceding goals. We still didn't pick up many clean sheets. Like last season, we picked up 5 clean sheets all season in all competitions. We kept 3 out of 3 at the start of the season, and we're on 10 already now. So we've doubled that comfortably. So he put a bit of structure into the side, but we were still conceding the odd goal here and there. And he spoke a fair bit last season about the personnel that needed changing, and he sorted that this season. So I think at the start of this year, people could see there was a base to build upon, and they were generally pretty happy with the way things had started at the back, just with the assumption that the football would flow a bit after that. But as the season started to wear on, and we were still, really over-reliant on long ball stuff and not scoring many goals, not creating as many chances as we would have wanted, that's when people started to ask some questions. And as I sort of hinted at earlier, like Nathan, he can be quite unlovable in his interviews. I mean, he's...
we know what that feels like.
Marmite.
Yeah, well,
It's a bit like Marmite, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. So, but there's been a lot of blaming, having a pop at the fans. When things start to go well, he remembers what happened a few weeks ago, and when fans were, like I say, calling for different players to come in, or you can pick the team, I'll just leave and take my money. When they beat, he said that. Yeah, when they beat Northampton, it's all about how the players have been vilified and all this sort of stuff. We'd lost to Crawley on a Tuesday night at home, and it was pretty toxic, but as it would be after that. And I mean, he described the reaction to that as, I think, catastrophic or something like that. Like, he really, despite himself then saying it hadn't been a very good. There's been a lot of hit and miss, and he'd had a little dig at me as well, actually. So I do the interviews after the game.
You personally?
Yeah. So because I interview him after the game. So when we'd won 1 in 9, I said 1 win in 9, and before I could even spit out the rest of my question, he went, "Well, it's 2 in 10." I sort of thought at the time, I was like, all right, brilliant. But I didn't say anything. I was like, if that's what you want to say, that's what you can say. And then we went and won the next 3. So obviously inspired him onto that. And but when we won the next 3, he was reeling out some stats of his own, and said, "Oh, you were quick enough to tell me 1 in 9. Well, how about this? We've kept 3 clean sheets in 6 and all that sort of stuff." Like, so he doesn't take very well to criticism, which does mean that when things go badly, I think that there's not a lot of love to be lost between him and the fans at this point. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you look at it the other side, he's incredibly passionate. He's clearly done something to this side because he has put a structure in place, which other than Saturday has been pretty good this season defensively. And when things are going well, everyone loves the sort of manager he is, who's like playing up with the crowd and that sort of stuff. But deep down, you just think he hates us. So I think that sort of the fans find it a little bit strange, knowing how to react to him. Obviously, they want him to do well. That's the main thing. But he can be quite tetchy.
There was a rumour circulating that Cardiff was sniffing around him. Is that correct? Or was that a thing that was possible? Or how would your Charlton fans have felt if that would have happened?
So at the
Given what you're
time, yeah. So this was sort of around the start of the season when people felt we were doing well, so they didn't want him to leave. I think the rumor sort of grew legs because I think maybe a year or two previously, you know, he's a Cardiff boy basically, so he's linked to the club, and his name got linked when it previously became available, and then there was no truth to it at this time. But the story got out there, so that when the story gets out there, people want you to ask the manager, what do you know about the link with Cardiff? And his answer very much was, I would love to manage Cardiff one day, but I'm really happy at Charlton at the moment. And it was a nothing story, but yeah, it's just the way these things go. It sort of grew a few legs because it was out there previously, so therefore we had to ask just to check. But there was never any approach or anything like that. So. I mean, when we were on 1 9, there were some fans who were begging Cardiff to come and take him at that point. And we've got Paul. I just noticed Paul's in the chat. He's a Charlton fan. I hope he's not too hungover after this video appearing on the weekend in the pub. But there was another thing that Jones said after we lost at Preston in the FA Cup on Tuesday, and we played really well. Probably should have won, but a couple of silly goals we gave away. Jones came out and said we had a championship level squad. Which some would argue when you're sat 12th in League One, it's quite hard to claim that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess in many ways, there's reasons why he would do that, trying to galvanise his squad and whatnot. I'll install a bit of confidence, I would suspect, but yeah, you're right. 12th.
We've been there with Ian Everts with the best team in the league, so we feel you.
Yeah, I've seen that. That comment thrown back in your faces on Twitter
by
opposing fans quite a bit, to be fair.
This was a comment made probably the best part of 2.5 years ago now, I reckon.
Yeah, it was I think it was our first, I don't know if it's the first season in League One or second. It's a couple of years ago now, yeah.
Yeah. And it still rears its ugly head. As we said before we went live, it'd be good to get a bit of an idea of your injury situation. A player that I'm a massive fan of is Miles Leaburn, and I do understand that he's back in the mix, so to speak. But yeah, if you can have a little think about the injury situation, Louis, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Yeah,
He's a sod with that button, isn't
he?
Sorry.
Yeah, so I was good. Look, we're actually in pretty decent shape injury-wise. Like, we've had problems throughout the season, but at the moment, we're not missing too many. So we've had a right back called Kane Ramsey. He's been out long term. He's probably due back within the next couple of weeks. There's every chance he might make the bench maybe Tuesday, or it might be a couple of weeks too early. We don't really know. Like, Nathan plays his card close to his chest with injuries, and it's similar with Tanay Watson, who would very much be backup right back, but he's not been there for a little while. But other than those two, I think we've got pretty much a clean bill of health. Like Lloyd Jones, been a big defender for us, has had a spell out of the side. He's back in. As you mentioned, Miles is absolutely huge for us, and just came back almost a year out injured in sort of November time, and has really hit his stride over the last few weeks. Scored again on Saturday down at Bolton, down at Rotherham. So yeah, I don't think we've really got too many injuries to be concerned with at the moment, which I'm sure is not the news you wanted to hear.
No, how good could Miles Leaburn be? He comes from a footballing pedigree, doesn't he? Obviously, Dad played for Charlton and whatnot, but how good can he be?
He's better than his dad, so that's a good start. But I think Cole knows that as well. So Cole Leaburn was Obviously, a bit of a cult hero down at Charlton. He played at Wimbledon as well. I think a couple of clubs elsewhere. But he was sort of a target man style forward, like big brute. Not the best goal record, but not an awful one. But Miles is a lot more technically gifted than his dad is. But he also has the finishing to boot. So he's had his injury problems. But I really think if he can get a good run of fitness, then I see no reason why I can't be playing in the Championship in 2 or 3 years' time. There's definitely going to be interest, people sniffing around. I think there were some bids from some German clubs. Maybe it must have been summer before last, I think, or maybe last January. I forget exactly when. But he's definitely been scouted by bigger clubs than us. He was with Chelsea as a youth player before we bought him back. It's quite a nice story, really. He's so obviously his dad's a Charlton legend. His mum is head of player care at Charlton as well, so she's a bit of a Charlton legend as well amongst us. So like there's loads of stories I could tell you about Tracy as well, about stuff she's done for the club, and is really well respected within the club. And so it's like the Leeburn family dynasty down at the Valley. But it must be embarrassing for Miles having his mum coming to work every day. But he's definitely got a very high ceiling. I'd suggest he could definitely do a job in the Championship in a couple of years' time minimum.
Yeah, I like him. Are we looking, Ange?
Oh, we're doing us. So we're better than we have been, which is good news for us. Josh Sheehan came back into the fold and played a few minutes on Saturday, which was nice to see. Owen Toll is back in training, I think the back end of this week, so won't be back for tomorrow, but that's massive for us. We really miss Tolley. Long term, we've got Chris Reno and Kyle Dempsey, and I don't think we will see them at all this season.
No.
Other than that, I think that's about it, isn't it?
Yeah, we're in a bit of a good place, aren't we?
Obviously
adding
a new signing through the door today, which means fall off chair with Ian Everett's press thing released today. We can play a different formation. Not 100% sure whether we will, but yes, thank you, David. You did, yeah.
I'm going to read that out for the people listening on audio, Ange.
I ain't got my readers on wet.
Sorry. Shouldn't rage.
David Jones says, a 4-4-2 diamond tomorrow. This could be the change we need. Jesus Christ, it's took long enough to sink in. So we did end on Saturday in a diamond formation, much to many people's delight. So yeah, it will be nice to see whether he mixes things up a little bit for a change. We will see. Watch this space.
Yeah, and for the Charlton fans listening, the signing that Angie is referring to is Alex Murphy, a young Newcastle left-sided centre-half / left back, who is very highly regarded up in the northeast. He's got a big future ahead of him, which is pretty good that we managed to get him on board, as well, of course, as recently Joel Randall, who I'm sure Charlton fans will know plenty about, given he's been playing in League One for quite a while. But yeah, that's kind of where we're up to, Ange, isn't it?
Oh, I'm having internet issues. Did you say something then?
That's what we're up to, though. We're all straight with that, aren't we?
Yeah, that's where we're at.
Fantastic stuff. All right, well, let's have a prediction.
Now, everybody who watches will know I don't do this. So I step out for this bit.
Yeah, this is just going to be one for mine. This is going to be the 99th time Bolton Wanderers and Charlton Athletic have met over the years. And that's been since records in 1923. Probably played each other a few times prior to that. But Bolton coming out on top 47 times, Charlton winning 30, and 21 draws, of course. Louis, I'll let you go as the guest. Obviously, we know you're not heading up, but it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on the game.
Well, I'm just looking at this video that's just come out of Ian Everett as well. I don't know if you guys have seen it, just for just before we came on, I just saw the comments. So I had a look. So I'm hoping we'll see a similar video at full time tomorrow. And
I mean, that was half time. It wasn't.
Oh, was it half time? All right. Oh dear. Oh, well, I'll take half time as well. But of all the videos I've seen online of Ian Evatt, that's one of the better ones, to be fair. But it's hard to tell with us. Like, for starters, like as you sort of meant, like Bolt, he seems to pick up a result, doesn't he? Ever, like, you seem to win a game every 4 or 5 games, which is weird. Like, I wish we had that level of inconsistency, because when we go without a win, it is like 1 in 9 or 16, like it was last season. But if we can turn the crowd, and I think the way that we can play away from home, we can make you nervous. We can make you. Force you into errors on the ball, which you did at our place, and I know you've done a lot this season in terms of passing it out from the back, then we can turn that crowd and we can make it a very difficult place to play. We've done that enough to ourselves at home. So yeah, I mean, if we can do that, then we're more than capable of probably going and win that game 1-0, 2-1, that sort of thing. So I'll go for a 1-0 Charlton.
Yeah. Listen, I'm of exactly the same opinion. I think that will be the team talk, or certainly it should be the team talk from Nathan Jones' perspective, is, of course, get the crowd against the team, which is not going to take much tomorrow.
Really not.
If things don't go according to plan, and we'll need to score probably in the first 15 minutes for people to relax and not get edgy. So if you can hold out for 15 minutes, Louis, I reckon you've got half a chance. So I'm going to go with a 2-1 defeat. I think Charlton will win 2-1 tomorrow.
We were 2-0 down after 15 minutes on Saturday, but that is a bit of a rarity for us. Like, we don't normally start. Yeah. Like, we do concede like first a fair bit, but we don't, like, that was weird. So, like I say, I think we'll go there and we'll do our best to disrupt and be a pain to play against, because, as I said, I mean, a club that's been a perennial failure now for quite a long time. We know how toxic it can get in your home ground if you're not doing well. So we'll know that we have to try and deploy that against you tomorrow night.
Yeah. The only thing that I'm kind of clinging on to a little bit of hope with is the amount of miles that you guys have done in recent weeks. Obviously not easy going up to Preston, then going home, and then going back up to Rotherham to then go home and then to go back again. I'm presuming you've done that given the
to try and negate it. They've stayed up since Saturday after the Rotherham game.
Okay.
So yeah, just to try and cut that, because it has been a horrible few days in terms of travelling. But yeah, no, I was told they're staying up. Although I said on our show yesterday, like, if we'd won on Saturday, you can imagine that'd be a lovely couple of days away. But if you've just you just had your worst performance of the season, then you got to wake up to Nathan Jones at breakfast every morning for 3 days. You'd be like, you want to be getting out of there as soon as possible, really.
Yeah, them things make a difference. Though, like, obviously, they want to spend time with the families, don't they? And they don't want to be in hotels, and your training regime might not be on point, and all that type of stuff. Maybe that's me clutching at straws from a Bolton perspective. I don't know, but not ideal preparation, is it really?
Weirdly, like, we came up a day early last year as well. So obviously most teams will travel on a Friday and stay over. But last season, when it was Nathan quite new, I wonder if it was like a little bit of a team building, get to know my standards sort of thing. But we came up on the Thursday and trained at Everton on the Friday, and then came across for the game on the Saturday. And it did make a difference, because obviously we came and took a point, which we were pretty pleased with at the time. So I'm just hoping that those few days away, like I say, takes the edge off the travelling, but also maybe they've had a couple of days to try and wrong a couple of rights there, and they've got it all out of their system, and they're ready to go again.
What would you take tomorrow? I know you mentioned that you fancy yourselves for a cheeky little win, but would you be happy with a draw, or the most likely?
It depends what we think is the realistic aim for this season. Like, I'm a bit of a points per game nerd, so I know what we need, where we need to be at this stage. I don't look at the gap to the playoff. I just look at where we are and where roughly we need to be. And if I think we can get to the playoffs, which I don't, but if we are going to, we have to win. We can't be losing to teams above us at the moment, particularly. But we can barely drop many points now for the rest of the season. So I wouldn't. If we went away with a draw and played well, like in the course of a normal season, I'm like, yeah, that's not a bad point. But I mean, if we want to do anything this season, I'm sick to death of getting into like February and knowing the season's over. So I don't think
yeah.
I'd be satisfied with a draw tomorrow. I'd only be satisfied with all 3 points.
Fair.
It's a fair assessment.
Mhm.
Can't argue with that. 150 of you have joined tonight, so thank you very much. That includes, of course, one Charlton fan. I think his name is Paul.
Oh,
Is it?
thanks, Paul. Yeah.
Thanks,
It's
Paul.
about the same amount of fans we're bringing tomorrow night, by the way.
It's always good to see an opposition fan in the chat. So thanks very much for joining us tonight, Paul, and thank you very much to the Bolton fans, of course, joining us tonight. Sorry, try and look forward to tomorrow. Obviously, somewhat of a. I think someone's used the word cesspit at the moment. I think I'm inclined to agree with that. But try and keep some kind of faith. But Louis, thank you very much for joining us. Have a lovely evening, and we'll catch you soon.
Yeah, my pleasure. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.